All right, in Matthew 24, I'm going to start in Matthew 23. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, murdering the prophets and stoning those who have been sent to her. How often have I longed to gather together your children in a way that a bird gathers together her chicks under the wings, but you have not been willing. You see, he's longing to do it, so he's not doing it. See now, your house is being left to you desolate. It's the house of Judah. For I say to you, you will by no means see me from now until you will say, exalted is the one coming in the name of the Lord. See John 15:26. He says, when the counselor comes, the Spirit of truth, whom I will authorize to you from beside the Father, he gives testimony about me, but so that one he's authorizing is coming in the name of the Lord. And if you want to see what he was saying to those Pharisees, fill up the measure of your father, serpents, progeny of vipers. How can you escape the judgment of the valley of Hinnom? And then he talks about how they killed all the righteous blood. And Jeremiah 19, read that. It talks about Judah in the valley of Hinnom, the valley of the slaughter, making void the counsel of Judah. And Jeremiah 2:28 through 35 talks about Judah being a destroying lion, that, or their sword destroying, and they roam around and all the righteous bloodsheds on them. But so, and from this saying, Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him. So this is at like that same time, and they asked him, tell us, when will these things be? What will be the sign of your magisterial presence and the completion of the eon? So he's telling you, watch that nobody should lead you adrift, for many will come trading on my name, saying, I am the Christ, and they will deceive many. But you will hear of wars and rumor of wars. Be vigilant. Do not be terrified, for these things have to come to pass, but the end is not yet. For kingdom will be roused against For nation will be roused against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there are going to be famines and plagues and earthquakes in various places. These are the beginning of birth pangs. See, we're in the birth pangs. A little revelation on the birth pangs: that woman clothed with the sun, moon, and stars, Revelation 12, having the child in her womb, and being in pains of childbirth and distress to give birth. And then you got that fiery red dragon having 7 heads, 10 horns, and 7 diadems on his heads, and his tail dragged a third of the stars of the skies. Those stars are the tribes of Israel. And it flung them to the earth, and the dragon stood before the woman about to give birth, so that he might devour her child, because she was to give birth to a son, a male, who was going to shepherd all nations with an iron rod, and her child was caught away to God and his throne. So there's a place prepared, 1260 days. Speaking of stars, Genesis 37:9, and this is Joseph, and he dreamed yet another dream, and he told it to his brothers and said, you see, I have dreamed another dream, and you see the sun and the moon and the 11 stars bowed down to me. Those are his other brothers all bowing down to him. And his father and his brothers, and his father rebuked him and said to him, what is this dream you have dreamed? Shall your mother and your brothers and I come bow ourselves down to the ground to you? See, when that male child goes up, though, to rule, he's going to send his 4 messengers, his 4 angels, 4 messengers standing on the 4 corners of the earth. But they're going to seal the servants. And if you count all them, this is Judah, Reuben, Asher, Manasseh, Simeon, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph. Wouldn't that be Ephraim or possibly Dan? Because look, Judah in Jeremiah 8:1 through 3, it says that all of them will choose death and they won't be gathered. This is setting a seal on them to be gathered. And look, Dan is missing from this list. So, and I think that Joseph was probably Dan, possibly, and then they just put Joseph, and then they replaced Ephraim at the top, the firstborn with the birthright, and they put Judah up there. And then they screwed up and put Joseph when there was already Manasseh on this list, when Joseph would be Manasseh and Ephraim. But But then you see in chapter 14, and I looked, and there was a lamb standing on Mount Zion with him 144,000. It's because he's flying, and he's above them. Mount Zion, that's Israel, the 144,000. So we know that Zion, that Mount Zion is that nation of Israel. So Zion is Israel. Romans 11:25, for I do not want you, brothers, to be ignorant of this mystery, so that you should not be wise within yourself, that blindness in part has happened to Israel until the fullness of the nations has come in. Think Genesis 48 prophecy of the blessings of the birthrights of Manasseh and Ephraim, that he will be a people and he will be eminent. That's that Manasseh, the first seed of his descendant coming. That's Jesus. But truly his younger brother Ephraim, and his seed, will be greater than him, and his seed will be the fullness of the nations. And it talks about Joseph. It was told to him by Israel that, I saw your seed, and just before that he said that El Shaddai appeared to me, and he gave him the blessings. And in Exodus 6:3 says how I am the Yahweh, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and I appeared to them as El Shaddai, but I was not known by my name Yahweh. And that burning bush showed up, and he said that Asher, I will be who I will be. And that bush didn't burn up because it was a vision, and he said to go tell Israel that I'm Yahweh, the God of Jacob, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and this will be my name throughout all generations. His authority, that because he was showing them that Ephraim seed, and so all Israel will be saved, as it has been written. The deliverer will come out of Zion. That's that child inside the woman clothed with the sun, moon, and stars is coming out, being birthed. Those birth pangs. And he will turn away ungodliness from Jacob. He's going to get rid of the ungodly too. And this will be the covenant from me to them, and when I will take all away their sins. Back in Matthew 24, verse 9. So after those birth pangs and all that stuff, the beginning of that, the child being ready to be born, then they will hand you over to tribulation. They will murder you, and you will be hated by all the nations on account of my name. It's not like they're being killed instantly then, but the cause and effect of that happening, they will be killed over that. And then many will be made to stumble, and they will hand each other over, and they will hate each other, and many pseudo-prophets will be raised up, and they will deceive many, because of the lawlessness being multiplied, and the love of many will grow cold. But the one having endured till the end will be preserved, and this gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed in all the inhabited world with a view to a testimony to all the nations, and then the end will come. So that tester has to come and tell the story, the gospel of it. Hebrews 9. When therefore you see the abomination of desolation, which was spoken through the agency of the prophet Daniel, standing in the dedicated place, remember they asked him, what will be the sign of your magisterial presence in the completion of the eon? And look, you won't see me until you'll say, exalted is the one coming in the name of the Lord. He puts Daniel at the end at that time. Daniel 11:31, and arms will be rounded up by him, and they will defile the sanctuary fortress. That's that anointed man. And they will take away the daily sacrifice, and they will put in place the abomination that causes desolation. That's the anointed man from Hosea. And then look, verse 24, chapter 9, to finish the transgression, and to make an end of sin offering, and to make atonement for iniquity, to bring in the righteousness of the eons, to set a seal on vision, and a prophet, to anoint the most holy one. So know therefore, the command to restore and build Jerusalem from Messiah the Prince, or until Messiah the Prince. They're telling you, there you go, that Messiah the Prince is coming. And the people of the coming prince will destroy the city and the sanctuary, but his own end will come with a flood until the full end of wars, desolations are determined. And it goes with the housetops and stuff and destruction. But the pinnacle of the desolator will be put in place, abominations until the consummation, in which is determined, will come pouring out on the desolator. He's going to be killing a lot of them. But look, chapter 7. And it watched until thrones were put in place, and the Ancient of Days took his seat, and he whose garment is white as snow, and his hair and his head like pure wool. His throne was like flames of fire, his wheels burning. A steam of fire went out from his presence, and 1,000 thousands were worshiping him, and 10,000 times 10,000s were standing before him. There you go. You already know it's Manasseh and Ephraim, because Deuteronomy 33, 13 through 17, speaking of Joseph, it says, these are the 10,000s of Ephraim and the thousands of Manasseh. Just like it says of David. David has killed his tens of thousands, and Saul has killed his thousands. Because look, the lion pen of the scribes has certainly worked deceit. Jeremiah 8:8. They changed the Messiah into the tribe of Judah, and it's not. There's a conspiracy found in Judah. Jeremiah 11:9. And look, he took his seat, and the scrolls were open. Think Revelation 5. No one was worthy to take the scrolls. No one in heaven, on earth, or under the earth. And, Ephraim's flying up there. That's why finally someone was worthy to open it, because it says Jesus is in heaven. So, and I was watching the night vision, what should I see but one like a son of man coming with the clouds of heaven? Like Jesus said, he comes with the clouds. And he came to Ancient of Days, and they brought him before him, and to him was given sovereignty and preeminence and a kingdom, so that all people, nations, and languages should serve him. So in his sovereignty is an enduring sovereignty which will not pass away, and his kingdom will not be destroyed. Okay, so them standing in the dedicated place, that's that most holy place, that anointed man that the seal on the vision and prophet set on. And then it says, after, he's killed, whatever, he who reads, let him observe attentively. Then those in Judea should flee into the mountains. The one on the rooftop should not come down to take the things out of his house. See, because that one that's killed, he's going to go up and run away first, and then they're going to run away when he comes back from Jeremiah 49 and 50. Or maybe it's Jeremiah 50 and 51, but talks about him running away from the swelling of the Jordan, and then later that swelling of the Jordan, he comes back, and then they run away, and it says, "Who is this chosen man?" But so speaking of the one on the rooftop and on the top of his house, Isaiah 22. And the prophetic oracle concerning the valley of vision. Think the valley of Hinnom, that's that valley of slaughter, that's the vision, the spoken oracle throughout Jeremiah, and Jesus spoke about it. What ails you now that you have all gone up to housetops? One on the rooftop, the housetop. You who are full of outcries, a tumultuous city, a joyous city, you're slaughtered or not killed by the sword, nor are they dead in battle. All your rulers have fled together. They are bound by the archers. See, this is when he kind of returns, and they're going to kind of flood, because they scatter then. And being bound by the archers, that's something in Jeremiah too. Somewhere in the 50 chapters, and it talks about the avenging of the temple and archers being around them. And go back to Isaiah 50, because it says you're dead or not, you're slaughtered or not dead yet. So it talks about oracle concerning Moab, and remember, he'll fly with eagle wings over Moab, Jeremiah 48:40. But over their heads will be baldness, every beard will be cut off, and in their open streets they will clothe themselves with sackcloth on the top of their houses. There's those rooftops. So, and their voice will be heard. So, Heshbon and Elah will cry in pain. I think that's kind of a type and shadow of witnesses. But you see the sackcloth? That's what you put on your loins, like mourning for an only son with the beard cut off. That's like what it says in Amos. And they continue, they're crying, and it talks about like a heifer of 3 years. The heifer gets killed at 3 years. It's like a firstborn shore. And there will be desolations. See, it's kind of that same talk. Amos 8:8, will the land not tremble for this, and everyone who lives in it mourn? All of it will swell like a river. Think like the swelling of the Jordan. It's overflowing flood with other people. Like Jesus said in Matthew 24 later in it, like the days of Noah. But anyways, and it will overflow and subside, and the same type of language is used in Jeremiah, like the river of Egypt. And it will come to pass in that day, declares Adonai Yahweh, that I will cause the sun to go down at noon. That's a symbolic of that chosen one being killed, because he's the light, and I will darken the earth in the day of light. Because that light, he's gonna go out, be killed. It's like putting a basket over a candle. And I will turn your festivals into mourning, and all your songs into lamentation. And I will bring sackcloth on all loins, and baldness on every head. And I will make it like mourning for an only son, and like a bitter day. And see, Jacob, he when he thought Joseph was dead, he put sackcloth on his loins. It's a figure of speech. So it's you see how that mourning it's speaking of is the same mourning, that son dying. It's Jeremiah 49:18 through 19. He'll come up like a lion from the swelling of the Jordan, and I will suddenly make him run away, who is this chosen man. So he'll stand before him and shepherd. And same thing says in Jeremiah 50, as you'll see, verse 44, he'll come like a lion from the swelling of the Jordan, and the habitation of the strong, but I will make them run suddenly from it. Who is this chosen man? And when he comes back, you're going to see people come from the north, a mighty nation. Many kings will be raised up from remote parts of the earth. See, that's at that gathering. And it's at Revelation 19. But here we are in the housetops. So he's kind of like coming back here, because that in chapter 15 of Isaiah, we've seen how, that heifer 3 years and that mourning, putting on the sackcloth. So it's like he was killed. And now he's kind of returning, and the slaughtered aren't killed by the sword yet. It's in a future sense, because those people, they are going to be killed. But because it's that valley of Hinnom. And so all who are found in you are bound together, and think that Revelation 19:20 go hand in hand. How that angel, the bottomless, who has the keys of the abyss, and he bounds them for 1,000 years. This is that part of it too, in that same vision. So when they have fled away, so I said, look away from me, I will weep bitterly. Do not labor to comfort me because of the plundering of the daughter of my people, because they're going to do all that killing. Remember when the desolator puts in place all the abominations until the consummation is determined, from that Daniel 9 we read. But so, and he will dismantle the covering of Judah, and you looked on that day to the armor of the house of the forest, and you seen how the breakages of the city David are many, and you gathered together the waters of the lower pool. So, and then you numbered the house of Jerusalem, you broken down the houses, and but instead of joy, there's gladness, killing oxen and killing sheep. There's more of that oxen thing, where that Deuteronomy 33:13 through 17, you get the transformation with the oxen and the wild oxen, and the eating flesh and drinking wine. But and it's nice too, because it's Jeremiah 25 verse 7, and he will swallow up in this mountain the face of the covering thrown over all peoples, and the veil that is spread over all nations. He will swallow up death and victory, and Adonai Yahweh will wipe away all tears from all faces, and take away the reproach of his people, and he will take away from all the earth, for Yahweh has spoken. And I think something like that in Revelation 12 too, talking about the earth will swallow them up, that dragon in them, and that veil, that's Judah. So, and then right in this same chapter, if you keep seeing on this housetops, you get some type and shadows in here. So right here, come to pass in that day, because it's still speaking about that same thing with the housetops, my servant Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah. So you get like that David Ephraim, the son of Jesus. And I will clothe them with your robe, kind of like in Zechariah, I think it's 3, and also chapter 6, about Joshua being clothed with a robe, and then there's that other guy, I forget the name, maybe it's Eliakim too. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he, he sits on his throne for him, and yeah, he's like the one that clothes him with the robe. Hopefully I worded that right. Sorry if I didn't. I don't feel like going over it. Read it on your own. And I will commit your administration into his hand, and he will be a father to the inhabitants of Jerusalem and the house of Judah. See, the father, that can be like a possessor and all that, because they're all going to come bow to his feet. Cause I know those who say they are Judah, but are nothing but a synagogue of the adversary, nothing but deceivers. And the key of the house of David I will lay on his shoulder. See, it's that son of Hilkiah, like that son of Jesus, getting the keys of the house of David from his father. And I will lay on his shoulder, and he will open and nobody will shut, and he will shut and nobody will open. And I will fasten him as a nail in a sure place, and he will become a glorious throne in his father's house. Think that Revelation, I will make him a pillar in my father's house, something like that in Revelation 2 and 3. And they will hang on him the glory of his father's house, and so. And this goes right with Revelation 1, with I am the first and the last. I'm living and I was dead, and behold, I live forevermore, and I had the keys of death in the abyss, or death in the grave. That's that same keys of the abyss that you see in Revelation 20 also. All right, back in Matthew 24, so we see he's killed in that housetop part. It's, because after he's killed, he's going to go away and he's going to come back and they're going to run from there. So woe to those who are pregnant. Think that Israel is iron clothed with the sun, moon, and stars. There's going to be bad stuff coming on them. But, stay strong and endure. And to those breastfeeding in those days, like those with child who get sucked in those days, it makes me think of. But yeah, like the ones that kill the child, the dragon that devours them, from Revelation 12. But pray that your flight might not occur in winter nor on the Sabbath. I think on that Sabbath day, that's a type and shadow of when he returns. Like Hebrews 3 and 4, today if you hear his voice, harden not your hearts. And it ends up speaking how if Joshua would have given them rest, and da da da, and consequently there remains a Sabbath rest. And it's kind of another type and shadow of the Joshua mentioned again from Zechariah, and now coming back, because if you're running on the Sabbath day when he returns, it means you're the enemy. You don't want to be that. For then there will be a mighty tribulation, the likes which has not arisen from the beginning of time of the world until this time, nor will it happen again. So those days are cut short. And then if anybody says he hears Christ or there, don't believe it, because he's telling you there is one Christ, but none of them on the earth are going to be him, because he's going to be killed. And then he gives you a sign what to look for him too. And these ones are going to perform impressive signs and wonders in order to, if possible, to deceive the elect. Which, if you read Habakkuk, where it mentions how Yahweh is in his temple, it says there's a concealing of his strength, of his power. So you're not going to see signs from him other than the sign of Jonah. See, I have told you ahead of time. So if they say to you, look, he's in the desert, do not go out. Look in the private rooms, do not believe it. For just as lightning from the east and comes from the east and flashes as far as the west, so will also be the magisterial presence of the Son of Man. Because he's going to fly with eagle wings. Because right here, for wherever there might be a carcass, in that place, the eagles will be assembled. I'm going to show you. That's all interconnected with Hosea too, because in Matthew 24, later in the chapter, he talks about him like at the knowing when the thief would come into his house, the robbers, get the band of robbers here, and there's the feast day of the king, so they're going to kill him. So verse 8, Ephraim is anointed one among the people. Ephraim is a cake not turned. That he's a burnt offering made by fire. He's going to be killed. So that's funny too. That anointed one used in Psalm 92. It's got that ox in there, and it's that same connection of Deuteronomy 33, 13 through 17. So outsiders devour his strength. Okay, just going to skim through it. The pride of Israel testifies against him. Ephraim is like an innocent dove, and I think he longed to be, how the chicks are gathered by a bird under the wings in Matthew 23. But and he says, I will chastise them according to the report of their congregation. And that's when he flies up there. And that's, and he hears a voice behind him. And he says to write these down and give them to the churches in Revelations 2 and 3, those letters to the churches. Because then you get down here to Hosea 9, the glory of Ephraim will fly away like a bird. No birth, no child, no conceiving. That's because he's already been killed. He's resurrected, and he's flying away, being caught up for 1,260 days, going to give him the report of the congregation to him. Because it says, Ephraim, just as I saw Tyrus, is planted in a pleasant place. He's in heaven. But Ephraim will bring out his sons to the murderer. Remember those on the housetops? Just before that, though, there's going to be a bunch of abominations, of desolations, where they're going to be killed after it on account of his name. Remember what I spoke about in Amos 8:8? All of it will swell like a river, and it will overflow and subside like the river of Egypt. And then, the sun coming down at noon, sackcloth going on the loins, them dying. So you see Jeremiah 46, if you were to read this chapter. So who is this to come up like the Nile, whose waters are moved like the rivers? Egypt rises up like the Nile, and its waters are moved like rivers. And it says, I will go up to cover the land, destroy the city and its inhabitants. Come up, you horses, and rage, you chariots, and let the mighty men come out, the Ethiopians, the Libyans who handle the shield, Lydians who handle and bend the bow. So those waters, it's a flood of water, and it's a flood of people, different peoples. Just like it says, his end will come with a flood from Daniel, how it says that. And then, it says in Matthew 24 about, just like in the days of Noah. And then, verse 10 here in that same chapter, Jeremiah 46, for Adonai Yahweh Sabaoth has a sacrifice in the north country by the rivers Euphrates. It says, end will come with a flood. And then he runs away, and then when he comes back, check it out. Look, the waters rise up out of the north. Out of the north is the land of Israel, the Israelites. And they will be an overflowing flood, and they will overflow the land in its fullness, and the city and the men and those who live in it. And the land will howl. So there's going to be stamping and all that, and they're going to spoil all the Philistines, cut off Tyrus, Sidon, and yeah. So it's when they return. Check it out. Jeremiah 48:14. How can you say we are mighty and the strong men for war? Moab is spoiled, and her towns have gone up, and his most choice young men have gone down to slaughter, declares the king whose name is Yahweh Sabaoth. See, that's a future thing that's going to happen. The calamity of Moab is near. Why? Because they're going to kill that one, the anointed one, with a flood, and his affliction hastens quickly. Mourn for him, all you who are around him, and all you who know his name, and say how the strong staff is broken, the beautiful rod. And then you get up here to verse 40. For Yahweh says this, as you will see, he will fly like an eagle, and he will spread his wings over Moab. So that lightning flashing, that's that sign of the Son of Man, because he'll fly with wings over Moab. So that's where the carcass is, the eagle will be assembled. That's that transformation. And immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, the moon will not give its luster. And so that's him receiving his power then, because he's going to fly up, and the sign of the Son of Man will be seen in the sky, and they will all mourn. And then he will send his messengers with a loud sounding trumpet, and they will gather together the elect out of the four winds as far as the ends of them. That's the gathering that's going to be set up, because they're going to set a seal on him for his return. So the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy, and that's the revelation of Jesus Christ that God gave to him. So when he said, be watchful, he comes with the clouds, all eyes will see him, and those who pierce him. And he says, John says, yes, amen. And he says, look, I am the Alpha and Omega, the Lord God who is, who was, and who is coming, the Almighty, who is dead, who is living, who was dead, and who is coming, finally arrived when John heard the voice behind him, that God Almighty, El Shaddai. Because look, he arrived in the Spirit in the Lord's day. That's that day of Yahweh, and he heard a voice behind him. That's that one coming up in the clouds. The glory of Ephraim will fly away and give the report of the congregations. That's what he told him to write down here. And look, the one like a son of man, it's all that Daniel description. He says he's the living one. I became dead, and now look, I see, I lived throughout the durations of the eons. I had the keys of death and the grave. Those are the keys of David. Read Isaiah 13 in connection with it too, because there's a vast throng of people coming from a far country to destroy the whole land. For the day Yahweh is near, coming from Shaddai. It's like that El Shaddai there. Like a woman in childbirth, they will be amazed at each other, like faces of the flaming faces. And now the day Yahweh, and look, for the stars of the heaven and its constellations will not give its light, and the sun will be darkened in its going out, and the moon will not cause her light to shine. He will punish the world for its iniquity, and I will make a mortal more fine than gold, a man more than the golden treasures of Ophir. So, and it's talking about that destruction coming, houses will be plundered, and yeah, it's going to be like Sodom and Gomorrah, and the jackals of the islands will cry in their desolate houses. See Isaiah 34 too. It's that same time frame where they're going to be delivered to be slaughtered. And look, and the mountains will be melted away with their blood, and all the hosts of heaven will be dissolved. It's kind of like those stars and stuff bowing again, like in Matthew. It's that same time frame, and the heavens will be rolled up together like a scroll. That's like in Revelation. And my sword will be bathed in the heavens. So, and we know he's already went up at that point when that happens, and they're dissolved and bowed down. That's when he goes up and he sends his messengers to gather the elect. And the sword of Yahweh is filled with blood, gorged with fat, blood of lambs, and the fat of kidneys and rams. For Yahweh has a sacrifice in Basra. It's like those two witnesses. They're going to be slaughtered. And the wild oxen will come down with them, with the bullock and the bulls, and their land will be drunk with blood. That's when he resurrects the two witnesses. Genesis 28, Yahweh tells the end from the beginning. Remember that. And then you see it's the messengers of Elohim and ascending and descending. Ascending because they're resurrected, and descending. They're kind of flying above and below them. They're probably all in excitement that they were resurrected. And Yahweh was standing above it. And that's when he poured oil on the stone because it represented the house of Elohim. In verse 17, this is none other than the house of Elohim. And from Joseph in the Genesis 49 blessings, it says, from the shepherd, the stone of Israel. Deuteronomy 33, 13 through 17, it said of Joseph, he gets all the blessings. He's set apart from his brothers. Like the firstborn bullock is his glory, and the horns of the wild ox are his horns. With them he will gore the peoples to the ends of the earth. These are the tens of thousands of Ephraim and the thousands of Manasseh. David has killed his tens of thousands, Saul his thousands. They're Ephraim and Manasseh. But here's a transformation here. That bullock, that's a shore. The firstborn, they're yoked around the neck. They're destined to be slaughtered. The ram, that's a wild oxen. They're a lot more majestic. They're bigger. They're not yoked. They're free. And we see that same transformation when in Matthew 24 or 28, where the carcass is, there the eagle will be assembled. We know he will fly with wings over Moab.